The producer of the Bumblebee movie and all the past Michael Bay movies up to this point, Lorenzo di Bonaventura, a name that comes up a lot with the cinematic universe live-action Transformer movies. He's always been behind the scenes, pulling the strings in a lot of different things, and he's probably the only consistent, really, when we think about it up to this point, when it partakes to every single live-action Transformer movie. We've had
we've been definitely talking about him a lot recently.
Yeah. Well, we've had different directors throughout the years. We'd have different producers, executive producers. We'd have
lots of different writers.
A lot of different writers, a lot of
multiple
different actors. Even different musicians and stuff. But the one consistent has always been Lorenzo here. So now we're at this point with the Bumblebee movie that we're kind of exiting our spoiler talk territory, and we could finally talk about the movie openly. So again, for anyone that hasn't seen the movie up to this point, first of all, shame on you as a Transformer fan.
How dare you?
Because this movie needs money, so go see it. Regardless,
at least the opening part of the movie. I mean, come on, people. For Cliff Jumper.
If you're just a G1 guy and you don't even like the Michael Bay movies, pay the money, go see the first couple of minutes of the beginning. There's a few other scenes here and there, and then you can leave and say you at least saw that. Anyways, so spoiler warning right now. Okay, so Lorenzo pretty much wanted to address the biggest question that a lot of people have been asking is this movie a prequel, or is this movie a reboot of the cinematic universe that pretty much started with Michael Bay's first movie in 2007? This is his exact quote. And I quote, "Someone described Bumblebee to me as 99% a prequel, 1% not." I was like, what? What is the 1%, he said. Is it the scene where Optimus and all the other guys come to Earth at the end? I was like, that doesn't contradict anything we've said before. Who's to say that they haven't been around robots in the skies since then? He then goes on to say, that scene I've always imagined, but in many different versions. I didn't do that scene until we shot the movie. So this is interesting, actually, because it sounds like something that was really thought after the fact. Then he would go on to say, because we felt the movie was going to dictate that scene a little bit, what happened is we got to see Haley return to her family. Bumblebee needs to return to his family. Otherwise, what happens to poor Bumblebee? That was our thinking. So so pretty much what he's trying to say is that he wanted to even though let's say it was a prequel, continuity-wise, it would have made sense for Bumblebee to return to nobody, but they wanted it that there's still some kind of happy ending for Bumblebee to return to something, so they felt, why don't we include Optimus and the other Autobots being there so that Bumblebee gets a nice conclusion at the end too. He would then go on to say, plus Optimus said, we are going to Earth, we're going to regroup, and then we're going to go back. In our minds, they went back. It had nothing to do with the other films.
They went back out.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with the other films. I was completely about the emotional journey of Bumblebee. So what they're implying here, and again, we'll get into how this contradicts other things, even just within the movies. Let's, number one, we're going to take the IDW movie comic book continuity, which was, at the time, was supplemental material. Let's sweep that under the rug. According to him, that doesn't count, which sucks because I liked those books, a majority of them, but that doesn't count according to them. So all we have here is the movies themselves, the 5 movies. Now, according to Lorenzo here, Optimus came to Earth, Bumblebee met up with him, and then with the other Autobots, and then at some point, they went back to Cybertron. Now, one of the first contradictions is I remember Optimus saying how when he met Sam Witwicky, and again, this is just like little nerdy nitpicking, but it's like, when he met Sam, he's like, we learned our Earth's language from the World Wide Web. The first contradiction with that is the World Wide Web was invented because of the Decepticons in that movie. Yeah. So when Bumblebee came to Earth and spoke English, and specifically Optimus Prime speaking English, that was, and all the other Decepticons, that was specifically whatever the plot device was invented for that Bumblebee movie, assuming it was a reboot, right? Yeah. Now that it's a prequel, that first part contradicts it. Not to mention, Optimus's first time on Earth was supposed to be pretty much the 2007 movie. The biggest glaring problem with that is when you look at The Last Night and how it had Bumblebee existing during World War II.
Yeah. That's a tough cookie there.
Yeah, that whole thing right there is now implying, okay, so Bumblebee came to Earth, he was in World War II, then he went back, then he came back again, the Bumblebee movie happened, then he went back, then he came back again. You know, then it starts, like, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, where does the Allspark fall into all of this? Was it all just was it all just a healthy coincidence? Was Megatron going there because of the Allspark or something else? But then you have the argument, well, then it has to do with the Fallen and the Star Harvester. Maybe it has something to do with that, and that was all a healthy coincidence. Or maybe you dial it back more, and we go to Dark of the Moon, and maybe it's because of Sentinel Prime and the...
It's super difficult because even from movie to movie, things are just overlapping, erasing each other. Like, even within the movie continuity, if you're just like, I'm going to go buy the movies alone, it even contradicts and overlaps and doesn't make sense with itself too. So it's just like, I think the only way they can even save, I feel the only way they could save themselves with this is if, because of Bumblebee's amnesia that he gets, he completely forgets that he was on Earth, but no, it shows at the beginning of the movie that's the first time he's on Earth.
The problem,
I think the only way they can save themselves is like, oh, it turns out Bumblebee has a twin brother, and then just go with that.
One explanation.
Go 80s, go full on 80s with it.
One explanation could be that there was two Bumblebees, which would be, oh God. But the point is that what I always have a problem with is these movies already, before the Bumblebee movie came out, already had tons of contradictions with their ongoing timeline, like constantly retconning reasons for being on Earth and this and that. The Bumblebee movie was almost an excuse and a way to get away from all of that and start anew and not have to worry about all the continuity hiccups and, of course, plot holes that exist. But in the end, Lorenzo pretty much said, no, it's a prequel. In the end, it's so... This really, like, you know, if the Bumblebee movie didn't have enough bad press as it is in terms of, like, it not doing well, although, I mean, right now in China it seems to be doing well, which is, hey, like, this movie's going to make its money. It didn't make as much money as they'd hoped. It's going to make its money, but it's like now on top of that, it's like, oh, by the way, in the end it was always just a prequel. It really, you know, a lot of us Transformer fans, we really left that theater thinking it was not a prequel.
A New Hope.
You know, not a prequel.
A New Hope.
Yeah, it was like we're rebooting into this new continuity that has a fresh chance with... Now it's like, hey, you know all those G1 designs that we all went gaga over? Yeah, those were just the designs for the prequel. Don't worry, we're all going to go back to those terrible designs later, you know? So it's like, oh man, like, because really now at this point, if this is a prequel, Bumblebee is that Camaro at the end of the movie. That means everything steam ahead is just going to go back to the Bayverse unless they go even more backwards. You know, like by it being a reboot, you could move forward and have those new designs, new this, new that. It's kind of like when they did X-Men First Class, and in a lot of ways it was a soft reboot, and they were able to move forward with those new actors playing those old characters. Yeah. Meaning like it's not I'm bad with actors, but you know, whoever was playing Jean Grey and Scott Summers and everything before, they could move forward with those new actors because it's a soft reboot and it's a fresh beginning. And that's how they've been able to continue doing those X-Men movies long after the third one with those old actors. So it's kind of the same thing here where, you know, we had this in a lot of ways it was a soft reboot or a hard reboot. We thought it was, so we can move forward with those G1 looking designs, with those G1 looking inspirations and characters and voices and stuff like that. Instead, it sounds like, no, we just kind of now moved right into the 2007 movie and that's it. So there's two problems I have with this. Number one, what does that mean for whatever the next movie is? It means that whatever we get is either going to be a sequel to The Last Night, because now it looks like we're still trucking forward in that continuity, or we're just going to get another spin-off, but still it's grounded in that world. And that's concerning. You know, like it's just, I thought we broke away, and it looks like we never really did break away. And in case they haven't noticed, breaking away was the best thing that ever happened to that movie from a critical standpoint. Meaning, like, everyone who saw the movie that loved it because we all felt it broke away. Yeah. We all felt like
it's trying to do something different. It's trying to bring new life to it. It's not the same thing of what's been going on for the longest while.
And everyone.
But then again, I mean, when you're putting a movie out outside of the U.S., outside of the Americas, outside of the West, you don't have to translate explosions.
No, you don't.
You don't have to translate robots transforming, Transformers fighting. Like, when there's more action scenes, that's a lot less to change or to put into the translation process.
Well, the flip side of it also is everything that hurt the movie. Because I just said everything that helped the movie from a critical standpoint was its great word of mouth. Everything that hurt the movie was everything that existed before that we did. You know, that old bad past from the Michael Bay movies is what hurt it. You know, as well as other things like maybe the title, maybe the release date, maybe the choice of movies it was going up against. Yeah, there's those factors too, like Aquaman and Mary Poppins and so. Mm-hmm. But the point is that what also hurt it was its past. The stuff that it should have not tried to honor but get away from. So, which we assumed it did get away from. But in the end, we're like, nope. It's like, imagine if, like, ultimately in the end, you know, a reboot of, I'm trying to think of, like, you know, Man of Steel, right, that we saw. They go, oh, actually, that's part of the Christopher Reeves continuity. It would just make people go like, wait, what? You know what I mean? That's just
that'd have been pretty crazy. It's like, okay, we're gonna be all nice and happy, and then all of a sudden, dark.
Well, or even like Batman Begins. Imagine you saw Batman Begins, and someone told you, "Oh, that's actually a prequel to the Michael Keaton movie." Yeah. You'd be like, what?
Yeah, get out of my face, you're lying.
But at the end of the Batman Begins movie, they talked about the Joker card. That makes no sense because Joker wasn't a thing at the beginning of the 1989 Batman movie. That's how I feel with Bumblebee the movie being called a prequel, because there's so much stuff in the Bumblebee movie that contradict it being a prequel to Transformers 2007. It's the same way you'd feel if someone told you Batman Begins was a prequel to Batman 1989 by Tim Burton. It's
exactly. It just feels weird and just like that doesn't make any sense.
The puzzle pieces don't fit. It doesn't make any sense. And again, as a hardcore fan, not a casual like moviegoer, as a hardcore fan, it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, like, I think at the end of all of this, I think that when they were making this movie, I almost feel like they weren't sure. I think that
one foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing.
I feel like Lorenzo said, he said here 99% prequel, 1% not. I feel like almost it kind of is exactly what he means, which is they probably were 100% going like, yeah, man, this is going to be a prequel. But then there was a part of them going like, but what if we didn't make it one? Maybe this is our way to get away from this. But they probably never dipped their toe in the bathwater. They just were not ready to do that. And then, again, because CG is done after the fact, and there's so many rewrites of the script, and voice acting's also done after the fact, along with soundtrack. I think that in the 11th hour of a lot of this in production, there was just like, well, maybe we should prime. You know, like in his old design. Maybe we should, like, you know, like all those CG Cybertron scenes. You don't think those were done probably at the end of the, after all of this shooting and planning was done? You know, like a lot of that stuff is done.
Maybe that could have been why Travis Knight's not coming back.
Who knows?
Maybe he's like, oh, so we're going to like start from scratch. No, not really. That's not what we're looking for here. Okay, well then I'm going back to what I was doing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
So
could be.
It's sad that it looks like we had a glimmer of hope here in terms of moving forward into a whole new world of Transformers for the movie theaters. And in a lot of lot it just has been tripping all over all kinds of stuff. And just, I don't know. The one thing a lot of people are saying that maybe Lorenzo was the problem to begin with. Like, some people are now pointing the blame to him instead of Michael Bay. Like, oh, these movies are terrible because it's Michael Bay. And now some people are going, maybe Lorenzo was the problem. I don't know. I don't think it's Lorenzo's fault. I don't think he's the one that makes those final decisions. I think that this is a bigger issue that happens from a writing room kind of standpoint, and of course, obviously studio executives who want to think about the longevity of brands and how long they can milk them pretty much without having cinema fatigue from audiences. But I think that this was a bad idea. I think that especially from the PR standpoint, from the fans, because at the end of the day, if you don't have the fans, all you have is the casual moviegoers, and sooner or later
they're very fickle.
They're going to get tired of this.
There are many the people that just I want to see a movie today, or we're gonna take a big family trip to see the one movie, the second movie of the year. They're very fickle. If you got stiff competition and they don't think that this movie's worth their time, then they're not gonna do it. And especially what you said the last time, where people didn't know that this is directed by somebody else, that this is probably a prequel, that all these extra factors. They know it's an origin story, but they don't know if it's resetting anything. It's really disheartening.
And the comic book industry has taught us that the whole point of reboots is when you have an audience that feels they're too late to the game, and because they're not invested enough, they can't jump in without being confused. DC always had that problem for many years. Marvel had it a little bit during the late 90s. So the whole point of a reboot is to let a new audience come in and start fresh. By not having this be a reboot, no one's able to start fresh. By calling it's not a reboot, it's a prequel. And thank God they didn't advertise it like that from the offset. If they advertised that from the offset, I think they probably would have lost even more people, because then people would have been like, oh great, now I got to watch all 5 of these 3-hour movies before I see this one.
Yeah, pretty much.
What is this Lord of the Rings marathon bull? Forget it. So to me, it's a shame to hear this news. Let us know what you think about this, because this is, when I first heard this, usually when I hear certain news like that, I try to keep my thoughts to myself and not talk about it on Twitter and publicly until I pretty much record it with Jaws D here. But I even couldn't keep my mouth shut, because I was unpleasantly surprised to hear this.
Even I was seeing on my Twitter just people rumbling about it, just like just eating their hat kind of thing, and it's just like, oh boy, we're gonna be talking about this today.
Anyways,
I find it's very too bad. Like it's sad, because it's so weird.
It is. At the end of the day, it's a missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity from a business standpoint, from a public PR standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. Not from a toy
fresh start.
Not from a toy standpoint, because then you could bring in all those old characters from the past 5 movies and just slap the Bumblebee logo movie product on it. Yeah. But everything else, it's a missed opportunity. And let us know what you think, because I'm not having it.